Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye covering the 2014 elections. We're on the campus of North Central College, North Central Tech in Wausau. We're interviewing Nancy Stencil of Wausau. She's a Democrat running in the 86th Assembly District. Nancy, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Nancy, this is your first campaign for state capitol office, so could you give us a short summary of your bio, please, and any issues that got you into the race for Assembly?
Well, I've always been interested in politics, always. Even as a kid, I can remember back as far as watching, the Vietnam War, Kent State, a few things like that, the Chicago 7. But probably most recently what really piqued it was Act 10, I'll be honest, and our governor, and what I feel is the wrongdoing to the state of Wisconsin.
Okay.
I think we're heading in the wrong direction. I work in the field of mental health. We see the crunch there. A lot of our poorer citizens, I see the crunch. Jobs are not happening here. Health care is bad. We need to reform.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. 3 years after Act 10 passed, what's been the impact, perhaps, in the health care that you have seen in the healthcare field?
Well, definitely budget cuts.
Okay.
And then as far as staff itself, we were originally given our retirement was known as deferred compensation, which is to say you take a little bit less in a wage so that extra went into your state retirement. And I think too many people began to think, oh, they're getting something for nothing, which I would also like to see a private healthcare or a private retirement system done the same as what the WRS is.
Okay.
And so therefore, I'll gladly pay it out of my check, whatever, but that money that comes out of my check now every week, my wages haven't increased, so that's that much less money I have to spend in my community.
Okay. So do you work for a local unit of government then?
Well, I work for North Central Healthcare.
North Central Healthcare. Well, let's talk about healthcare. As you're aware, 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents gets their health care through our Medicaid program.
Right.
The American Hospital Association says our MA reimbursement rates are second lowest in the nation.
Awful.
Should those rates be increased?
Yes, they should be.
Why? Tell us about the impact of having
the impact is it even goes further than that. It's the fact that those hospitals are not reimbursed at a rate that they should be, and you and I are ultimately picking up the tab anyway.
Okay.
So, and I personally, I hold 2 jobs just to afford my health care and to be able to maintain a lifestyle.
Okay. Let's talk about school funding. If you're a member of the Assembly and school aid is debated as part of the next state budget,
I'm sure it will be.
What are you going to be pushing for?
I will be pushing for putting funding back into our public schools. Aside from Milwaukee, which I think that's almost a different ballpark all its own over there. I am firmly against the voucher schools.
You are? Okay.
I do think that anybody who receives state money needs to be held accountable at the same standards as the public schools are.
Okay. This summer the governor asked that Wisconsin withdraw from the Common Core standards. Do you have a position on that?
There was a lot of long, hard work from a lot of different people that went into that. It was a collective group of people, from teachers to citizens to everybody, who came together to make a standard that nationally is seen. And I think it should stay in place. Is it perfect? No, nothing's perfect. Not everybody at the table gets everything they want, but I think it is good and it needs to remain.
You said one of the reasons that you're running is the issue of jobs. What hasn't been done yet in the state of Wisconsin to either create new jobs or keep the ones that we have?
Raising the minimum wage. Nearly 20 years ago, I became divorced, found myself with a house payment, a car payment, and a 10-year-old child to raise, and I was making $8 an hour then. I could not live on $8 an hour then. Why do we seem to think almost 20 years later people could possibly live on this? The minimum wage needs to be raised. We need to make fair pay, pay equity. We need to be paying a living wage.
Transportation funding, there have been some estimates that in the next 2-year budget cycle, we could be $600 million, $700 million short. What do you think is the way to fill that deficit?
Well, maybe we could use the governor's rainy day fund to put that back in there. I think there is planning being done as far as monies, if there is any taxes raised or whatever that would go into a transportation fund, needs to stay into the transportation fund.
Okay.
And I think that's very, very important, be it a wheel tax, and I hate to see that. I hate to see a hike in gas tax, but many other states do as far as the wheel tax. But we keep borrowing from things and not putting back. And you know, if we had such a surplus, maybe that surplus money should have been put back in there. And now we have this budget surplus is no longer a surplus, but a huge deficit.
Would you consider voting to raise either the gas tax or the $75 a year you and I pay for license plates?
I would like to really study that further to see what else could be done.
Okay. Is frac sand mining an issue in your district?
It's not a major in my district, but there is a small sand mine in Weston that their license was not renewed, and I'm happy to hear that it was not.
Do you think regulating frac sand mining, is that an issue of local control, or should the state pass a law and say no local government could enact tougher standards?
I think it could start at the state level, but most certainly have an impact on the local level, because I would like to keep things as local as possible, and what might be helpful in one place might not be in another on other issues. I am against, I shouldn't say against, but I do not like the sand mining. I think it came like a boom and bust all too fast. Laws weren't put in place. We need to put a halt on it until we can study it further, because what you do to the environment, you don't get back.
The bill to legalize medical marijuana will be reintroduced next session. The states of Colorado and Washington, as you know, have legalized recreational marijuana. Your position on those issues?
The medical marijuana, definitely. I'll be honest, I'm a real fence sitter on recreational. I do think it needs to be taken off of Schedule 1, possibly made into like more of a fine thing, freeing up the court system somewhat, the police somewhat, and finding it could create general revenue.
Okay. If there is a budget deficit, if there's a potential budget deficit of more than $1 billion in the next 2-year spending cycle, what are your thoughts on how it should be fixed? That's separate from the transportation deficit.
Okay. I do think we need to look at all parts. We can't just keep raising taxes, but yet we have to look what could be cut, where things could be better spent, and finding new ways of generating revenue in this state.
Okay. It's an old issue, but it's always debated. First offense, drunken driving. Should it be a crime, Nancy?
For the people who have had somebody killed in drunk driving accidents, I know what they're saying. I think what we need to really do in the state of Wisconsin is change the culture of drinking. And I think the rest would follow. It's too big of a thing in the state of Wisconsin. You can buy a tall boy. And my second job is in a grocery store field. And I do tend to look at these single-serving cans or these single-serving wine glasses. What is this, something somebody picks up at the grocery store to drink on the way home? I think the entire culture of drinking in this state has got to change.
Recently, the governor said if he's reelected, he would recommend drug testing those who are getting unemployment benefits and food stamps. Your response?
I think it's a joke. It costs far more. Other places have tried it. It costs far more money to do that than what it actually catches. And I know he had said it even for unemployment, and I think that is just so wrong. I think basically people want to work. They do. So you're laid off from someplace and you should be drug tested in order to receive your unemployment check?
He also wants to cut the period that these benefits are paid from 60 weeks, from 60 to 48, back to 48. Your position?
I don't want to see it cut back. Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I have got family members that they work for a large corporation, and His unemployment has been, or his employment has been kind of sporadic with the way things have gone in our economy. I definitely would not want to see that cut. So many times when people are receiving unemployment benefits, it's not that they don't want to go out somewhere else and work. They're waiting to be called back because where they work has great benefits and great pay. And is our governor expecting them to take a lesser job for $10 an hour just because there's nothing else out there right now? What happens to, your house payment, your car payment, and a few other things?
Finally, the governor also recommended freezing tuition for the next 2 years, both in the UW system and on the tech college campuses. We're sitting on a tech college campus. Do you have a position on the tuition freeze?
I do not like, in some ways, yes, I like to see the tuition freeze, but the money has got to come from somewhere as well. I actually went to North Central Technical College, and I love this place. I received the best education in the world. And I see it from a student's viewpoint that, I would not want to have to pay any more than what I have to, but at the same time, we need to be able to recruit great educators to educate.
Okay. Then finally, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 4, Nancy?
Well, we have many. I think we're probably polar opposites. I will try to look at every issue and not vote lockstep with my party. I think jobs is a big issue in raising the minimum wage. I really feel that we do need affordable health care for all, where it can be spread out amongst everybody. Because when there are people that don't have health care, in the long run, you and I are paying for it anyway. This way it's going to be spread out over a broader base. And as far as education, we have great public schools. And I think it's very important to keep them intact. If you're going to start funding voucher schools with public school money, eventually the money's going to run out somewhere, and we, the taxpayer, are going to wind up paying for what? 2 schools now instead of 1? Whereas if supposedly our public schools are so failing, then let's put some money into them, let's make them better. And if you start cutting money from that, in your rural districts that are already hurting, you pull a school out of a rural district and you transport people into the city, you're killing that community because there's so many things that community does in their school. And then you talk transportation of how much money is it going to cost to transport these children somewhere else.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Nancy Stencil of Wausau is a Democratic candidate in the 86th Assembly District. Nancy, thank you for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
Thank you.